Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. I hope you're doing well. It's time for another edition of our Billboard Top 10 out of the Hot 100 series, where I go over the top songs in a given year according to Billboard, and we put them over here in this lovely tier list and rank them either in S tier or maybe all the way down to F tier if they're really awful. We have done the 2010s, and now we are doing the 2000s, which we're almost finished with this decade. We only have a few more left for this batch of years because now we're just at 2008. And man, 2008, back then, boy, there were hits. There were some hits, buddy, back in 2008, and we're going to talk about them. All right, we're kicking things off with number 10, according to Billboard. That would be Chris Brown with the track Forever. Truth be told, I don't really have a whole lot of love for this era of Chris Brown's music. It's kind of boyish, idyllic, squeaky clean, boring, soulless, formulaic, especially in the case of this track, which is a pretty generic and flavorless piece of dance pop, which aesthetically I don't think has aged all that well over the years. Plus, on top of it, I think Chris Brown went on to give much better vocal performances deeper into his discography too. While it's not awful, I wouldn't say it's anything special either. Pretty inoffensive and drab by late 2000s standards. Even though obviously the track was a massive hit, I would put it very firmly in the D tier. Then, of course, after this, Chris Brown had another major placement in Billboard's top 10 in the Hot 100 for that year with the track With You, which is more of a heartfelt ballad, acoustic backing, more of a love song with lots of very pandering, insipid lyrics. Some may say that it's kind of proto-Justin Bieber. Not crazy about the song myself, but I will say this. Chorus is on point, strings that pop up in the back of the hook are beautiful too, and I think the vocal performance that Chris brings here is markedly better than what we have on Forever. We can throw this pretty solidly in the C tier. Ba-bam. Switching gears over to one of the major club hits of that year, we have Usher's Loving This Club featuring none other than Young Jeezy, which is a song, in my opinion, that is so annoying and awful, it's barely worth sticking around for the Jeezy appearance. I mean, look, maybe this is because I'm an older millennial or whatever, but I happen to think that Usher post-Confessions era is pretty mid, fell off, and I think this song is pretty handily evidence of that, not only with the generic dance pop production in the background, but a lot of Usher's vocal lines and lyrics on this cut are especially awkward. He's not even flowing on this instrumental in a way that feels smooth and sensual or the least bit fun like it is on many classic Usher hits that are far superior to this. But this wouldn't be the only kind of pop and club-centric hit that he's had in this video series that I've completely shat on for its mediocrity, and this one as well I have to put over in the F tier, even if maybe the vocal performance is more on point in terms of, like, pitch and melody than some of the songs that we've talked about thus far in this series, in the 2000s anyway. Okay, at number 7, switching things up, we have Sara Bareilles with Love Song, which in my opinion is one of the better pop songs of the 2000s. It's incredibly cute in terms of its lyrics and themes. You want a love song? I'm not going to write you a love song. I'm not feeling it right now. It's not in my heart, so I'm going to write a non-love song about this annoying situation where you want me to write a love song, and then that's going to be a non-love song hit. It's sort of in the vein of You're So Vain. You probably think this song is about you. But Sara Bareilles has her own style, her own vibe. The instrumental is very theatrical, very jaunty. The bridge on the track is kind of mid, and on top of it, Sara doesn't have the most standout voice or maybe instrumental aesthetics out there. Stylistically, I think she kind of comes off like Fiona Apple for girls who have more good days than bad. But it's still a very good song, and I think it is a prime example of a quality, fun, and catchy pop songwriting. I would put this very firmly in the B tier. Thank you. Next, we head back into the R&B field with this next one. That would be Jordan Sparks' No Air featuring Chris Brown, which is a duet of sorts. And while I do think the chorus is solid and Jordan does give a great vocal performance across the song, generally, I'm not really feeling the vocal chemistry between her and than Chris, and many of the lyrics tend to be maybe too on the nose. Not being able to breathe without air and all that, of course. Not a terrible track, not an amazing one either. I would throw this cut into the C tier too. Following this, we have the One Republic song Apologize, One Republic, aka Proto Imagine Dragons, with a super generic melodramatic pop anthem that is so over the top and annoying, mostly thanks to its drums brought by the one and only Timbaland, which helped me come to the realization that Imagine Dragons is pretty much Timbaland's fault. We could blame Imagine Dragons on Timbaland, because the drums and the bass for a track like this, vocally and instrumentally, is just way too goddamn much. And of course, with a track like this being a massive hit, what else was going to come down the pipe other than another band that was just going to do it in a bigger and much more annoying way? So I would put this very firmly in the E tier. Following this, we have the legendary hit Lollipop from Lil Wayne's The Carter 3, which is cool, is very good. I like it. However, frankly, I think it's kind of a travesty that A Milli is not in the top 10. However, I could see why this track would get priority due to its very melodic and anthemic chorus. The hook really does pop. It's a quality instrumental as well. Those pulsating synthesizers in the production are great. However, I think a lot of Lil Wayne's vocalizations, especially kind of the ad-libby ones that are left in the recording of the track, are very messy. They're unflattering. On top of it, lyrically, I don't think this is one of his best showings on The Carter 3. His flow is decent, but I think it's really the chorus that's kind of carrying the track for the most part. The finer details, I think, tend to fall apart a little bit when you analyze them more. But still, decent track, good track overall. I would put it pretty firmly in the B tier. Next, we have singer-songwriter extraordinaire Alicia Keys with No One. Alicia, whose work we have covered multiple times in this series thus far, comes through the track that I'm not too crazy about, honestly, and I don't think has aged all that well because the production is very flat, it's very soulless, it is lacking in nuance, especially on the percussion side. A lot of the big booming Timbaland and Pharrell beats were sort of catching up with us at this point, and it's like almost as if there was a pressure to put that sort of rhythm behind everything and anything, and as a result we ended up kind of smothering and killing the finer dynamics of what is, I think at the core of this track, a pretty decent song. The chords are there, the melodies are there, and Alicia's vocal performance, in my opinion, is absolutely killer, but the super basic changes, arpeggios, and again, the drums just coming through in such an aggressive and crushing way, kind of makes this thing just not feel like the ballad that it truly is, and I think as a result, aesthetically, it just has not aged all that well. I'm going to put this one in the C tier because, again, while I think it's a solid tune, it's a solid song, the aesthetics of it, the production of it just have not aged well at all. I think a lot of the same things could be said about the next cut over here. That would be Leona Lewis's Bleeding Love. However, I do think there is a slightly more impressive vocal performance on this one. Of course, with her being a recent X Factor winner at the time, she had to bring that vocal heat. We have a good song, a strong vocal performance, but again, the very basic instrumentation and those booming, just crushing, dynamic killing drums just don't really leave a lot of room for, I think, the subtlety and the beauty of the song they are kind of smothering and covering up. We can go C tier on this too. And then to finish things up, at number 1 on Billboard's list for 2008, and believe me, we really needed a track like this to come through because, as you can see on this tier list so far, 2008 is one of the more dismal looking years that we've gone over in this series. But coming through to save the day with an outright banger, what is quite possibly the biggest and most significant club hit of the 2000s, that would be Flo Rida with Low, featuring T-Pain. From hip-shaking grooves to iconic lyrics that everybody still remembers to this day. Low, getting low, I go low, I go low. What can be said about this track that has not been said a million times already? The verses sandwiched between these choruses are fun, they're playful, they're charismatic, they've got a little bit of swagger, they're kind of campy too. In addition to that, T-Pain's hooks, his vocal harmonies and lines, are great. Not only melodically, but, you know, those very exuberant calls of "she get a low, 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 low" are just hype as fuck. Look, when it comes to club hits, the 2000s, like, that was the era because, like, hits, new songs, the biggest and best stuff, the most relevant stuff was made or broken in the club. And I think Flo Rida's Low is just the kingpin of those kinds of tracks, frankly, for this era. So I'm going to pretty firmly put this in the S tier. I'm actually going to blow it up a little bit and make it real fat so it takes up the S and the A tier. And it's going to expand to take up all the other tiers too. And that is going to be that. But there you go. That's 2008 right there, baby. 2008. Those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know down in the comments. You're the best. Love you. Mwah. Subscribe to the channel. Over here next to my head is another video you can check out. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Anthony Fantano, 2008, forever.